everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kitty Mary and congratulations. This is the very first impact analysis video that I am filming in my kitchen. I am pretty over filming in the office right now because there's no other furniture, so the audio is just horrendous. I cannot take it anymore. We are moving into the kitchen instead until I hopefully sometime next month or so will get my office in here and it will be aesthetic and pretty and lovely again. Anyway, I hope you can manage the slightly more casual approach to today's video, which I guess is fine because we're gonna talk about beverages and soda and bottled water, and I have a lot I want to talk to you about. And this is a video that has been requested numerous times since I started the impact analysis series, and I'm excited to get started, honestly. I have a video about the impact of the fast food industry, and you could be saying a lot of the same things for those two, so I'll focus on some completely different aspects of the beverage industry. So if you're curious about sort of the fast food, junk food side of the story, check out that video instead. Anyway, let's get into it. The global soft drink industry is worth $0.85 trillion, and the market is expected to grow around 4% every coming year. The most revenue from soft drinks is generated in the US, where sales is estimated to total $328 billion this year. 1 in 5 consumers in the US drink soda every single day, and it's estimated that the average volume of soft drinks consumed per person in 2023 will be 42.9 liters, according to Statista. If we're looking at annual revenue, the biggest soft drink company in the world is PepsiCo. They're generating an annual revenue of $86 billion. It should be said that half of that revenue is actually from snack companies instead, because they do own a lot of companies that is not just Pepsi, like Captain Crunch, or Aquafina, or Cheetos, or Doritos, or Mountain Dew, or Sierra Mist, or 7-Up, or Lay's, Walkers, Gatorade, and so many more. Next up is the Coca-Cola company with an annual revenue of $43 billion. And yeah, they also own a bunch of other companies, like Fanta, or Innocent Smoothies, or Vitamin Water, or Fuse Tea, or Powerade, or Schweppes, or Minute Maid, or Costa Coffee. Number 3 is Dr. Pepper with an annual revenue of $14 billion. And they also own other companies, okay, like Canada Dry, or Rose, or Yoo-Hoo, or Hawaiian Punch, or Root Beer, or Sundrop, or Margaritaville, or Snapple. Number 4 is Red Bull with an annual revenue of $8 billion. And it's an energy drink. I don't know if we call energy drinks and soft drinks. I don't think it's technically the same, but if we're looking at beverage companies that are non-alcoholic, that's where we are. And number 5 is Monster Energy with an annual revenue of around $6 billion. And they also own a couple of other companies. It should be said that Red Bull also owns other companies, but they're all related to Red Bull and sports events and sports teams more so than other beverage or food companies. If we want to look at the impact of carbonated drinks, we have to divide that impact into several different aspects. So first of all, we have packaging, we have ingredients, then we have transportation, then we have manufacturing, and then we have refrigeration. And some aspects of this impact is definitely more important than others, because around 60 to 77% of the impact of soft drinks comes from its packaging. Ingredients account for 7 to 14% of the impact. 7 to 10% comes from manufacturing, and 7% from transportation. And then there is a potentially different impact that can increase the overall impact with 33%, and that is refrigeration, depending on how the soft drinks are stored. Now, because packaging takes up such a big portion of the impact of the product, I think we should talk about that first. So the impact of the product changes depending on what kind of packaging is being used. Glass has the highest manufacturing impact. It's really heavy, so you need a lot of material to produce your item. When you're producing glass and making glass, you also need incredibly high temperatures, and that comes with its own incredibly high impact. And glass is made from minerals, so you have to excavate those materials from natural environments, and that, also comes with a really big impact. Overall, using glass as a single-use product is a really bad idea. Yeah, obviously, when you reuse glass many times, the impact becomes smaller and smaller. And actually, I've talked about this many times, and I even have a designated glass impact video. So if you want to know more about the supply chains and the variations of the impact when it comes to glass, go and watch that video. I will link it down below. The material with the lowest production emissions is actually PET plastic bottles. Mostly because it's lightweight. You don't need a lot of material to actually make the bottle. You'll blow up the plastic and fit it into the bottle mold. It doesn't take a lot of material, hence the low impact. The global warming potential of soft drinks could be reduced by 32 to 48% if 40 to 60% of PET bottles were recycled. Currently, 91% of plastic isn't recycled, so there's a long way to go. Additionally, reusing glass between 1 and 5 times could reduce the global warming potential by up to 2.5 times. So what about cans? Aluminium cans can be recycled indefinitely, actually just like glass. They're more lightweight, they're also more flexible and durable, which means that there is less risk of damaging the product during transportation, which also would add to the impact. The recycling rate for aluminium is okay. There is room for improvement, but overall it's looking quite alright. Also, according to the Aluminium Association, around 75% of the aluminium we have produced is still in use today and not rotting away in a landfill, which is neat. But just like with glass, the initial production impact of aluminium is quite high. It takes a lot of material, it takes a lot of high temperatures. However, recycling aluminium only emits around 8% of the greenhouse gases that producing it from new will do. Now, I have some thoughts about packaging. There is no need to glorify glass. A product doesn't automatically become more sustainable because glass is used instead of plastic. Glass is great for many things, but not as a single-use product, especially if there isn't the proper infrastructure to recycle it. Now, that infrastructure does actually exist. For instance, in the Danish return system, glass bottles from both soft drinks and beer is washed and reused over and over around 30 times before it's even remelted once. And that will drastically lower the impact of that packaging. Just as with aluminium, glass can be recycled indefinitely without losing its quality, but with plastic you have to add new virgin plastic to the recycled plastic in order for it not to go brittle and become fragile. But there are actually upsides to using plastic. We are not all about demonizing a material. It's not about the material, it's about how you use the material. Because it's lightweight, it's cheap, it doesn't require a lot of materials, and yeah, there are great ways to use plastic. It's not all bad. However, and this is my biggest complaint when it comes to plastic packaging, and it's that many companies that are producing plastic packaging are banging on about how low impact and how few emissions is related to the production of plastic, and they're banging on about how consumers should remember to recycle the plastic, and they're making billions, but they are in no meaningful scale contributing to those infrastructures being put in place, because recycling is not a universal system. Recycling facilities and management systems vary drastically from region to region, city to city, country to country, continent to continent. There's so many different ways of recycling plastic, and these companies are not contributing to a widespread availability of these systems. They are just making sure that consumers understand that it's their responsibility and their responsibility only. And no, it isn't. As such, even though plastic has a low production impact, there are loads of issues related to our use of plastic packaging after it's been produced. We see plastic pollution in our oceans and in nature. We have microplastic issues, and then there is the fact that it's a fossil material, it's a byproduct of the fossil fuel production, and that in and of itself is also a problem. If you're confused about which packaging to choose, that is completely fair. This has not been made transparent or easy to understand in any way, shape or form. There are loads of different variables that we have to take into account, or that we can take into account at least. But this chart helps explain where the different impact lies and how to use these materials in the best possible way. At least this gives a little bit of an overview. Now, when it comes to the ingredients in soft drinks, the most impactful ingredient that's used is sugar. Although ingredients only account for less than 20% of the overall impact of the product, it doesn't mean that we don't have to talk about it or that it shouldn't be improved or noticed, etc. So let's talk about sugar. The agricultural process of growing sugar requires pesticides and chemical fertilizers. Cane sugar especially, but really all types of sugar and sweeteners require a lot of water to produce, and the agricultural impact also includes soil erosion and water contamination. Producing 1 liter of soft drink requires roughly 340 to 620 liters of water, depending on what type of sugar you're using. Are you using sugar beets, sugar canes, etc.? However, one thing I think we should talk about as well is the social impact when it comes to sugar production. A large quantity of sugar is imported from countries with very low wages and with an increased risk of forced child labor. These are the same issues that we also talked about in the impact of chocolate video, so go and check that out as well. We go into way more detail, but again, specifically related to a completely other type of consumable. Anyway, there are overlaps in these industries and supply chains, Because obviously there is. India, Brazil, China, Thailand, and Pakistan are the top 5 sugar producers in the world. And now the social impact of sugar has actually been a known issue for decades. It's also the main topic in the book The Hunger Crop, which goes into way more detail with the social impacts related to the supply chains of sugar. And there are many examples of how people in the supply chains of sugar are being exploited. And there are tons of examples of issues within the supply chains of sugar. For instance, there was a certified fair trade farm in Belize where it was uncovered that they were using child labor during school hours. And during that time, about 14% of the sugar import to the UK came from Belize. As we've discussed many times as well, the certification bodies like Fair Trade and Rainforest Safe, etc. are great places to start, but there are still lots of issues that need to be corrected. The main issue is that large corporations are exploiting people in low-wage communities and are not building those communities up, but rather keeping them in a state of poverty so they can continuously function as low-wage workers. Now that we've established the impact of sugar, one question which naturally comes up is diet soda then more sustainable? Because it doesn't involve sugar. The 3 most common artificial sweeteners are aspartame, sucralose, and acesulfame K. And yeah, they don't grow out of the earth, they are created in industrial laboratories. Aspartame is probably the most well-known artificial sweetener, and it's generated by fermenting sugar via bacteria. And fun fact, these artificial sweeteners can be up to 600 times as sweet as sugar, but they contain 0 calories. Now that something contains 0 calories doesn't mean that it's a good thing or that it's healthy. Now I like to preface this by saying we're not talking about health in this video at all, because she is not a health professional, but I do know how to complain about environmental issues, so that is primarily what we'll be doing. I just really want to add, because I am invested in the talk about diet culture, something being calorie free just means that it cannot be digested or absorbed by your body. It just means that it will go straight through your system and you'll pee it out. That's just what it means. Calorie is just a measure of energy. So when something has calories, it means that it can be absorbed by your body and used for whatever purpose. 0 calorie doesn't mean super healthy, that nothing will ever happen to your body. It just means that you're basically putting something into your body that you will also be getting out of your body again. Your body is a tube for that thing. It just goes through like a tunnel. I don't know why I'm explaining this so thoroughly. I feel like you understand now. Okay. However, when you pee these artificial sweeteners out, they will go into your local waterways. They will go to a wastewater treatment facility. And at one point in time, because they cannot really be taken out of the water, that's just like with microplastic, it's just not really being done. So at one point, they're just going to end up in our global water systems, aka the environment. Now it should be noted that the presence of artificial sweeteners in our environment is a relatively new topic in science, and it's a vastly understudied topic as well. There is data that suggests that we have already found artificial sweeteners in groundwater in Europe, and we have seen changes and developments in algae and fish related to artificial sweeteners as well. But there is very little studies done on this exact topic. Some scientists are predicting that this is going to become a much bigger topic in the future though. There's also data that suggests that artificial sweeteners like aspartame breaks down under UV lighting. So it breaks down into compounds that are unpredictable, potentially toxic. And with bioaccumulation in nature, we have really no clue what the long-term effects will be. But they most likely won't be beneficial. When we're looking at the carbon footprint, overall it seems like a diet soda has a moderately lower carbon footprint from the production stages than sugary drinks. But that's only the production stage. But I think one very important note is that when we're trying to compare different types of sweeteners, both natural and artificial, it's really hard to compare their impact because their supply chains are so vastly different, because they are different types of products with only really one common quality, which is flavor. Also, a study that showed that diet soda is more sustainable came from the Carbon Trust on the behalf of the Coca-Cola company, but that study failed to mention post-production impact. So you know. Now, in terms of greenwashing, I have talked about both the Coca-Cola company and PepsiCo several times in my greenwashing series. They're kind of returning characters at this point in time. And that includes everything from claims about recycled materials and recycling return systems to claims about biodegradable bottles. And does anyone remember Coca-Cola Life? The Coca-Cola company produced 2,900,000 metric tons of plastic in 2020, and PepsiCo produced 2,300,000 metric tons. And this has made these companies the worst plastic polluters on the planet 5 years in a row. I really recommend checking out the report Break Free from Plastic, which gathers information from more than 200,000 volunteers to map out the extent of plastic pollution. One thing is the initial manufacturing impact, where plastic falls relatively light. Another thing is what happens to the material after use. There is a million reasons why consumers and governments should demand more from the companies that produce this plastic packaging. One thing that we got that we didn't really ask for was the Coca-Cola company as an official sponsor for COP27, which I know I am late at complaining about. I should have complained about this a lot sooner, which I just really didn't get around to, but we're complaining now. So plastic is a fossil material, and the burning of fossil fuels, of which plastic is a byproduct, is the leading cause of climate change. So we took the company that produces the most of this material and made them an official sponsor for a climate event, which is odd. Personally, I really like this quote from the global coordinator from Break Free from Plastic about COP27. Instead of allowing companies like Coke to greenwash their image, governments need to compel polluters to invest in reuse and alternative product delivery systems that avoid the problem in the first place. This is one of the key systemic changes required for the world to avert the full consequences of climate change and plastic pollution. Governments worldwide now have the justification and opportunity to actively address and reverse the plastic pollution crisis by coming up with a global plastic treaty that cuts the plastic pollution, makes corporations accountable for the pollution they are causing, and mainstreams reuse-based alternatives. Now, the craving for these drinks doesn't just appear in our brains on its own. Consumers are constantly being influenced to buy these products. And around this time, there's probably a genius or two in the comment section going, well, no one is forcing you to buy a product just because you see an ad. No one is forcing you to drink it. It's sort of your own responsibility to choose differently than what advertisements are showing you. And yeah, that's true if we are completely ignoring and disregarding the massive passive impact ads have on our brains, and also completely removing the responsibility from those who put up the ads. This article reveals that in the UK, junk food brands have spent 27 times more money on advertisements for their products than the UK government has on healthy eating campaigns. Yeah, let's pretend that doesn't have an impact. The best example I have to show how powerful these advertisements can really be is probably the Coca-Cola holiday truck, and how a soft drink company trademarked Christmas. You know, okay? Now I would like to change the pace a little bit before we get to the how to consume this product more sustainably. I want to talk about something else for a hot second. I want to talk about how the way we consume these drinks and beverages says a lot about our society and our current political system. And I'm just going to sound super annoying now, but how we distribute especially water in our global society says a lot about what is valued in capitalism. So something I'm seeing a lot of right now on social media is water-related trends. Both water with different flavors and syrups. Water talk is a whole trend and niche in and of itself. So people are doing some funky things with water, and we're also seeing a lot of content related to ice, different shapes of ice, different flavors of ice, ice with fruit in them, freezers specifically designated for ice storage. We're seeing some content right now that I have a very tough time not relating to our collective economic situation. So currently money isn't doing too hot right now. With inflation, everything from food and beverages to heating and electricity is skyrocketing. The cost of living is definitely rising, and as such, people have less money, and what is considered mainstream luxury or small luxuries is changing. In many ways, the trend related to water and ice resembles the lipstick effect. What is the lipstick effect? I am so happy that you asked. The lipstick effect describes a tendency in consumer behavior that was first described during the Great Depression. So during the 1930s with the Great Depression, the production of everything in the US fell with 50%. People had no money, but somehow the cosmetic industry spiked. And we actually saw the same thing during the '08 crash, especially nail polish sales went through the roof. So what is happening is that when people don't have a lot of money to spend or invest, a lot of people are buying small items to make themselves feel better. That's what's happening. It's actually quite natural, like it's a very human thing to do. If you're in a situation with a lot of economic uncertainty, I also definitely get why you want to treat yourself, make yourself feel better, buy a small thing that will sort of feel exciting for a while. I get it. And I feel like we're seeing the same thing with water and ice related products. At least I think that with social media, these tendencies are becoming much more recognizable. And speaking of water, bottled water in and of itself, I feel like it's its own little microcosm of capitalism. Because seemingly everybody needs water and everybody has access to water because we have plenty of it. So at least we would have plenty of water if our global water supply wasn't continuously polluted by the textile industry, animal agriculture, or fossil fuels. Anyway, luckily we have companies that drain natural springs and bottle that water up and sell it back to the people that would previously have access to that spring. I'm so happy that you mentioned Nestle, because Nestle has received backlash, honestly, since the 60s for their unideal business practices, including the baby formula scandal from the 70s that killed 1 million infants. Or that more recent time in 2015, where it was discovered that Nestle had been taking water out of reserves from natural forests with a permit that expired in 1988. With a global water shortage, taking natural spring water, bottling it up and selling it back to people with 1,000% markup, it makes you the bad guy. It really does. It also does not help that one of the former CEOs of Nestle stated that calling water a human right was a little bit of an extreme. But I digress. And obviously this isn't just Nestle. Both PepsiCo and Coca-Cola also own several companies that sell water. And I feel like both our consumer patterns when it comes to these types of products, as well as the relationship these billion-dollar corporations have with our governments and the power that they have to include themselves in certain narratives, COP27 Coca-Cola, and exclude themselves of other narratives, says a lot about our priorities as a society. I don't want to be all we live in a society, because that's just a little lazy. But selling water especially, but other kinds of beverages, shouldn't be a billion-dollar business. Or let me rephrase, it shouldn't be a business where you can put billions and billions of dollars into your own pockets while not redistributing any of that value back into communities in a meaningful scale. Now we're getting to the how to consume this product more sustainably. The first thing I would really like to stress here, and this is something that I've actually really been very conscious with myself of doing as well, because full transparency, I do also drink soft drinks. I do. One thing that I am very conscious of is not drinking soft drinks when I am thirsty. I can have one once in a while if I crave that specific flavor or freshness. I will always drink water if I'm thirsty. And if I want something that's fun, in addition to my normal daily water intake, I will have a soft drink as a special treat, instead of drinking soft drinks as something that hydrates you, because that will very easily lead to an overconsumption. And obviously I will also choose tap water over bottled water any day. I'm always gonna be a hoe for tap water. Quote me. Also choose a packaging that is recyclable near you. Recycling systems are not universal, so what might be accepted by your local recycling station might not be in other places. So find out what is recyclable near you and what has the highest recycling rate, and then go for that material. Try to stay away from billion-dollar corporations if that is possible. There are still, luckily, small family-owned small businesses that create products for us to buy. And the more we support these companies, the less likely it is that they're going to be bought by a massive billion-dollar corporation. Anyway, I really like supporting these small businesses instead of the big billion-dollar corporations for obvious super villain energy reasons. It's not every time you buy a soft drink that's possible, but when it is, grab that opportunity. And that's it for this video. I hope that you liked it. If you did, leave me a comment down below. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. If you have any questions or something you want to add, or an idea for a new impact analysis, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day, and I will see you guys next time. Take really good care of yourselves. Until then, bye. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green zero waste content, and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!